You are sitting at the table. The conversation is moving fast. People are talking over each other, jumping in, laughing, and you are right there in the middle of it, present, listening, aware of everything being said, but somehow invisible. Not because you have nothing to contribute, you have plenty to contribute. In fact, there is a thought forming right now, a good one, something real and worth saying. But by the time it is fully formed, the conversation has already moved 3 steps ahead, and the moment is gone. So you stay quiet, and someone across the table glances over and says it. "You're so quiet tonight. Is everything okay?" And something in you tightens, because you want to say, "I am not quiet. I have been here the whole time. I have heard every word. I have thought about this conversation more deeply than anyone else at this table. I just couldn't find the door." If you know that feeling, this video is for you. There is a specific kind of person who disappears in group settings, not in one-on-one conversations. One-on-one, they are present, warm, articulate, deeply engaged. But put them in a group and something shifts. The words slow down. The thoughts keep coming, but the bridge between thought and speech narrows, sometimes closes entirely. And from the outside, it looks like disengagement, like shyness, like having nothing to say. But from the inside, it is something else entirely. It is a mind working at full capacity in an environment that was not built for the way it works. Psychology has a precise explanation for this. It is not a social deficiency. It is not anxiety, though anxiety can sometimes overlap with it. It is a fundamental difference in how certain nervous systems process, cue, and deliver language in high-stimulus social environments. And once you understand the mechanism, the silence stops feeling like a failure and starts feeling like exactly what it always was, a mind that runs deep in a world that moves fast.
Chapter 1. The Science of Why Group Conversations Feel Different. Let's start with what is actually happening in your brain. In a one-on-one conversation, the social environment is relatively simple. One voice, one thread, one person's energy to track. Your nervous system can process the incoming information, formulate a response, and deliver it, all within the natural rhythm of the exchange. But in a group conversation, the environment multiplies in complexity, almost exponentially. Multiple voices, multiple threads running simultaneously, multiple people's moods, agendas, and social dynamics to monitor at once. For a highly sensitive or introverted nervous system, one that processes all incoming information deeply and thoroughly before responding, this complexity creates what psychologists call cognitive bottleneck. The brain is receiving more input than it can process and output simultaneously, and so it makes a choice. It prioritizes intake over output. It keeps listening, keeps processing, keeps understanding, but the speaking slows, pauses, sometimes stops entirely. This is not a malfunction. This is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do, choosing depth over speed, understanding over performance. The problem is not your brain. The problem is that group conversations reward speed, and your brain was built for something else. Chapter 2. The Closing Window. Here is the specific mechanism that most people never have named for them. In group conversations, there are windows. Small, fast-moving openings in the flow of dialogue where it is socially acceptable to speak. For fast processors, people whose thought-to-speech pathway is short and direct, these windows are easy to enter. A thought arrives, it is expressed immediately, naturally, without friction. But for deprocessors, the thought arrives and then it travels. It moves through layers of internal evaluation. Is this worth saying? Is this the right moment? Is this fully formed yet? What will happen when I say it? Is the window still open? By the time the thought has completed that journey, the window has closed. Someone else has spoken. The thread has moved. The moment that belonged to your thought no longer exists.
and you are left holding something real and unsaid, watching the conversation continue without it. This happens so consistently, so predictably for so many quiet people in groups that over time it stops feeling like a missed moment. It starts feeling like a fixed truth. I am just not someone who speaks in groups. But that is not a truth about who you are. That is a truth about the speed of the room. And speed is not the same thing as depth. Chapter 3. The weight of being asked, why are you so quiet? Let's talk about that question, because it does something specific to a quiet person. It takes an internal experience that was already slightly uncomfortable and makes it a public event. Suddenly, the silence, which was private, manageable, yours, is being observed, commented on, treated as a problem that needs explaining, and the quiet person is left in an impossible position. Do you explain the whole truth? Actually, I've been fully engaged this entire time. I've thought about this conversation more carefully than most people at this table. I just process differently, and the pace doesn't leave room for the way my mind works. Or do you do what most quiet people do? Smile, shrug, say, I'm fine, just listening, and shrink a little more. Psychologists who study introversion and communication have identified this moment, the public naming of someone's silence, as one of the most consistently reported sources of social discomfort for introverted individuals. Not the silence itself, the being seen being silent, the implicit message underneath the question. You are not participating correctly. The way you are here is not enough. And if that message lands enough times, in enough rooms, across enough years, it doesn't stay as a comment about your behavior. It becomes a belief about your worth. That is not a small thing. That is the kind of quiet wound that shapes how a person moves through the world for decades. Chapter 4. What is actually happening while you were silent? Here is what nobody at that table knows. While you were quiet, you were tracking the emotional undercurrent of the entire conversation. You noticed the moment someone's enthusiasm dimmed when their idea was talked over. You registered the slight tension between two people that everyone else moved past without acknowledging. You were holding the thread of an idea that might have shifted the entire direction of the discussion. You were present in a way that most of the people speaking were not. Because speaking and presence are not the same thing. Noise and contribution are not the same thing. Volume and value are not the same thing. The loudest person in a group conversation is rarely the one with the most to offer. They are simply the one most comfortable with the speed. Your silence was not absence. Your silence was attention. And attention, real attention, the kind that actually hears what is being said beneath what is being said, is one of the rarest things one human being can offer another. So let's say clearly what you are. You are not someone who has nothing to say. You are someone whose thoughts are worth the time it takes to form them properly. You are not someone who is bad at conversation. You are someone who is exceptionally good at a kind of conversation that groups rarely make space for. The deep kind, the slow kind, the kind where what gets said actually means something. You are not invisible in those rooms. You are watching. And the people who matter, the ones who are paying the same quality of attention you are, they notice. They notice that you don't speak carelessly, that when you do say something, it lands differently than the noise around it, that there is a quality of intention behind your words that makes them worth waiting for. The world will keep asking you why you're so quiet, and you are allowed to let that question pass without answering it. Because the honest answer is this: I am not quiet, I am precise. I am building something worth saying, and I will say it when the room deserves to hear it. You were never the problem in those conversations. You were the part of the conversation that mattered most.